Operation High Jump, man. It's not they're coming from space. It's that, like, they're somewhere in Antarctica. There's, like, some kind of something in there, and that we discovered it.
I'm in.
And they were like, hey, yeah, you can't fuck with us. Like, you can't come here anymore. Don't come here anymore.
It's a John Carpenter movie.
Yeah, man, it's like the thing, there's a civilization out there. And there's treaties with a lot of the world powers, and the treaties are with the people who can make it there. Because, like, your average person isn't going to Antarctica.
I think what happened in Antarctica was that approximately 13,000 years ago, that flourishing civilization that originally came from space and establishing presence in Antarctica was flash frozen. We actually have ancient evidence of this in the form of Plato's dialogues, where he talked about the last days of Atlantis. That basically is informing us that Atlantis was an extraterrestrial colony that had established itself on Earth, and that after a pole shift, Atlantis was moved under the ice at the South Pole current.
Modern whistleblowers still argue that there is more about Antarctica that is being covered up than we think. Their entire base, their entire civilization, that the world's governments are working with aliens.
They know about buried artifacts, they know about the ancient civilizations down there, and they know about the extraterrestrial civilizations that continue to operate in Antarctica at the very moment.
It's totally possible that Antarctica contains an extraterrestrial home base on Earth. It's a totally isolated part of the planet, completely uninhabited. It's ideal.
If human beings keep going, we definitely will create a simulation. It's just a matter of time. So if that's the case, how do we know that we're not in one already? And we really don't. Every day we go to sleep, and every day we wake up, and we assume and we have faith that all that stuff that we remember is really how life went on before we were awake. But we really don't know. According to probability theory, it's more likely that we're in a simulation.
Maybe that's true.
You're assuming that all of the stuff that you know and all the stuff that you experience is 100% real. We are within 100 years away from making something that's indiscernible from what we experience every day. And that's inevitable. Unless we get disrupted by nature, unless we get hit with an asteroid or start a nuclear war, it's inevitable that technology reaches a point where simulation is possible.
High government officials disclosing extraterrestrials. Paul Hellyer.
Paul Hellyer, former Minister of Defense of Canada, and he believes that life forms from space exist and are present on Earth. Why do you say that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over our heads?
Well, because I know that they are. They've been, as a matter of fact, they've been visiting our planet for thousands of years. And one of the cases that would interest you most, if you give me 2 or 3 minutes to answer, is during the Cold War, 1961, there were about 50 UFOs in formation flying south from Russia to across Europe. And the Supreme Allied Commander was very concerned and about ready to press the panic button when they turned around and went back over the North Pole. So they decided to do an investigation, and they investigated for 3 years, and they decided that with absolute certainty that 4 different species at least, had been visiting this planet for thousands of years. So that's we have a long history of UFOs, and of course there's been a lot more activity in the last few decades since we invented the atomic bomb, and they're very concerned about that and the fact that we might use it again. And because the whole cosmos is a unity, and it affects not just us but other people in the cosmos, they're very much afraid that we might be stupid enough to start using atomic weapons again, and this would be very bad for us and for them as well.
I've always speculated that aliens could potentially be us in the future, because if you look at like the size of their heads and the fact that they have very little muscle and they don't use their mouth anymore, they have this tiny little. I mean, the archetypal alien that you see in like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they're like if you went from Australopithecus or ancient hominid to us, what's the difference? Less hair, less muscle, bigger head. And then you just keep going. 1,000, 1,000,000, whatever year, or 5 years, whatever happens when Neuralink goes online, and then we slowly start to adapt to this new way of being, where we don't use our muscles anymore. We have this gigantic head. We can talk without words.
How are people just now finding out about this? So I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the Independence Day movie with Will Smith, where it had a mothership above the White House. Isn't it quite hilarious how on March 9th, the Pentagon UFO chief said that there's potentially a UFO mothership in our solar system? But don't just take my word for it. Let's listen to what Will Smith has to say about this.
Why are Will Smith movies looking more like a reality? When we make movies like that, they show us stuff that's 10, 20 years away.
It's funny because you guys think he's joking, but you're the same type of people that still believe all the things that The Simpsons came up with that came to be true were all predictions. I got way more to say about this, so follow me for part 2. Let's get it.